What is up, everybody, and welcome to the All-NBA show powered by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com/AllNBA. I'm your host, Adam Mares. I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, the best in the biz, Tim Legler. Legs, how was your weekend?
Weekend was great, man. Really, really good. Now that I'm, completely divested from football, it's great, actually. I'm a lot less stressed out. I don't have to worry about watching these games. It's been great. Very relaxing, man. Actually, it's been a weird time. I'm going to be honest with you. All kidding aside. I still watch my team, obviously. They stink. But this is weird, man, for me because of this lull with the game schedule.
Man, it's so weird.
I'm going a month between calling games, man. It's like and Breen is still working because he, of course, does games for the Knicks. So he's got I think 8 or 9 games between Thanksgiving Eve when I called my last game and Christmas. But Richard Jefferson and myself will go like a month between games. So it's a little bit weird, man. So I'm watching, basically staying, obviously stay on top of things because of our work together and whatnot. And you're watching games, but it's just I'm kind of antsy, man. I want to call a game.
Well, it is weird. And also the schedule just at large is bizarre. This is the NBA Cup week, so we're getting into that. We're going to talk about that today. But it really breaks up the schedule in a way that's kind of strange. A lot of teams play one game in the next 8 days. And so there's a weird rhythm going on around the league, I think, right now that I'm sure we're going to get into. On today's show, Lakers-Sixers had an interesting finish last night. We'll talk a little bit about that. But we're going to go back and critique ourselves, Legs, for some predictions we made at the start of the year when we talked about the ceiling for teams. What were the ceiling? There's a couple teams that I think we have to elevate their ceiling from what we said a couple weeks ago before the season began. So we're going to examine that and look back at some of our predictions. But let's start today with some quick hitters. And unfortunately, we have some bad news from the weekend. The Orlando Magic are cursed because it's been several years now of Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. I've talked a lot about how I don't love their fit together. It's a concern I've had, but they never seem to be able to be healthy at the same time for long enough for you to feel confident about that. It's like, hey, give them some run, though. They can figure it out. Paolo Banchero comes back, and just 2 games later, Franz Wagner goes down with what will probably be announced here, maybe even in this hour, the severity of a knee injury, but it looked really ugly the way it folded underneath his body. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. To me, this is a complete game changer for the Orlando Magic if he has to miss a substantial amount of time, Legler. What do you think when you saw that?
No doubt. No doubt. I think for me, he was and look, again, we don't know. Sometimes you catch a lucky break on this and it's not as bad.
So true.
Once you do the imaging, right? We're all obviously hoping for that. He was, to me, a lock for the All-Star team. He just is such a versatile player. It's such great size for the way that he plays and the way he can put it on the deck. So hard with his cuts and his drives. Very physical player. He's been sensational, man. And they were getting their act together as a team. Now they, kind of reincorporated Banchero back into the mix. He hasn't really found any sort of offensive rhythm since he's come back. But they've won 10 out of 14 after a very slow start. Bane finally found his rhythm. He was kind of sluggish to start the year. He started, putting up numbers. They've had Suggs. Anthony Black's been great. Your guy, I think, is right. Is that one?
Yes, 100%. That's correct.
He's been tremendous. You've talked about that. When they're typically involved in a winning run in a game, Anthony Black's usually on the floor. So they kind of found their rhythm. They've climbed back up to top 5 in defensive efficiency, which is where they were last year, but they weren't there at the beginning of the year. Everything was pointing up, man. And then this happens. So we're sitting here waiting. We could get news while we're on the show. Very possible. Usually those MRIs take place like late morning, early afternoon. And that's when you kind of get the diagnosis. Then, of course, the team will get together, the PR people, and you figure out whatever statement has to be released. They're going through that now. It'll come out sometime this afternoon. I'm certain of it. If he's out, Adam, I don't know, man. Like, you're really going to find out then if Paolo Banchero is a guy that can carry, because you're talking about potentially Franz Wagner being out a really long time, or maybe the whole rest of the year, depending the severity of this. Paolo Banchero is really, you're really going to find out. Can this guy be the guy that could drive the train by himself with a really good defense around him? Now that they've added Bane to the mix, who's playing well, Banchero did not have that last year when Wagner was out. He's got Bane now with him to shoulder the burden. We'll see what this is going to mean for the Magic. But certainly, if this is a long-term thing with Wagner, this changes, I think, the way we're all going to view the potential upside and ceiling of the Orlando Magic.
Well, certainly that part, but I think even beyond that, you got to, when you're building a team, you think you have all these years and you want to find out who you are and adjust over time. And to me, if he misses substantial time this year, it just will feel to me like another wasted opportunity for that. And if you just go back the last 3 seasons, they just have never been able to get enough momentum to say we know exactly what that pairing will look like. So that to me is the biggest tragedy, is not only do you hurt yourself this year and the upside that you have, but how do you move forward just feeling like you never got a great sample size of what they are? They're 14-10 right now. They have climbed to a 5 seed, and that Eastern Conference is so wide open, Legs. This is the other tragedy of it, is it's not one of those years where you're just punching uphill against a bunch of juggernauts. You could become a top-line contender. There's a handful of teams that are waiting to see if they can become top-line contenders. The Magic are in that group, and so this one is such a bummer. Let me ask you about – go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the schedule. Like, I always look at that when guys go down. Who knows what this is going to end up being? But let's just say, like, best case, it's like 4 weeks or something, right? That's a month.
Yeah.
They've got 9 out of 13 on the road coming up. 9 out of 13 on the
man.
road. But if we're looking at the silver lining in that, they've got, in that mix, Brooklyn, Washington, they've got Indiana twice, they've got Charlotte, they've got Utah. So it could be worse, but that is a lot of road games. Missing your guy that's been your best player this year.
One other quick note on this one, and I have to imagine you saw this play, but maybe not. We've talked about how Desmond Bane has been a little surly this year, a little short-fused. Yeah. He got into it with OG Anunoby over the weekend, and he catches the ball, loose ball, or the ball comes to him. He's not falling out of bounds whatsoever. He's perfectly stable, and he winds it up as much as he can and throws it as hard as he can at OG Anunoby, who's out of bounds, and then points at the ref and says, "Our ball, it's out on him." He got a technical for it.
I'm telling you right now, and look, I know people get irritated anytime, a former player wants to compare different generations and you say, like, get off my yard, guy. I'm telling you right now, though, in the 90s when I was playing, that's a fight. That is a fight, because I'm telling you, the velocity with which he threw that ball was so unnecessary. And again, it was like, technically it's a legal play, but it crosses that line of, like, something you just don't do to somebody. It was interesting because you're right, Bane, and it's not just like this year. If I feel like Bane has been a guy that's found himself with some, some little skirmishes and different things, and being an antagonist at times on the court, particularly when those Memphis teams felt like they were getting into it all the time when he was there and alongside Dillon Brooks. And when it felt like it was happening all the time with that team. So it was interesting. I'd never seen anything quite like it. Like, that level of velocity when it was completely unnecessary. Like, I've seen guys jump out of bounds to save a ball and then turn, and the guy they throw it off of is still in bounds. And, like, you wing it as hard as you can at his legs so he doesn't catch it. Like, I've even seen him throw it off a guy's face in that situation. I think it was unintentional. This was like, he's already laying out of bounds. Like, all you
also,
have to
Desmond Bane wasn't falling out of bounds. He was perfect. He could have grabbed the ball and gone the other direction.
That's a great point. He could have gone the other way up the court and just played 5-on-4, or he could just have thrown it sort of like softer off of him because he's laying out of bounds. So even if he catches it, he's out of bounds. Like, it's going to be your ball, but he decided to put a little extra heat on that, man. It was really interesting. And I thought OG Anunoby handled it about as well as you could.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're right, because he pointed it out. You kind of have to stick up for yourself in that moment, but you can't go too far. But Desmond Bane, what a menace this year, man. That guy's been insane. Jalen Johnson had 2 triple-doubles over the weekend. He now has 4 on the season. 3 over his last 5 games. This is, I mean, we have just been watching the rise of this guy over the last couple years, but I don't know if people are awake to what he is doing right now. On Friday, he had the second fastest triple double of all time. Legs, he picked this up with time to spare in the second quarter. He had a triple double, and then he had another monster. And that one, by the way, was a monster one: 18 rebounds, 16 assists. And then he picks up a 30-point triple double, really a triple dozen, 12 and 12, right after that. This guy is unbelievable. He's got Atlanta playing well. What do you make of this? 4 triple doubles, 3 of them in the last 5 games, 2 of them in a row.
Well, I can't imagine the amount of like effortless talent that you have to get a triple double that fast in a game. And well, first I want to say this about Jalen Johnson. He's been an intriguing talent. We've been talking about Jalen Johnson for a couple of years. Like you knew the talent was there. Mostly these like splashy athleticism type stuff, right? And you're always wondering, like, okay, what's that going to ultimately turn into if he adds more refinement to his game? I never thought that he could get to this level as a playmaker. Like
Right.
the scoring, like you would think that can happen. The rebounding when you're long and athletic, like that can happen. The playmaking is different. Like that requires a totally different like skill set and something you've got to master to be able to make that to happen. I didn't think he could get to this level really probably ever as a player, but man, has he gotten there at a young age, and to get a triple double that easily, that quickly in a game is just speaks volumes about how talented this guy is. And I think what we're looking at now is a guy that, barring injury, the rest of the next 6 weeks or so, he's going to be an all-star this year.
I mean, he has to be 23 and a half points, 10 and a half rebounds, 8 assists is an incredible line. Oh, by the way, 1.6 steals per game. He does it on that end of the floor too. But the thing that stands out to me is, yes, he has all this athleticism, but he uses it the exact right way. He chooses to play a thoughtful style of basketball. He reads the court. He doesn't he doesn't get sped up trying to do this or that. He just kind of plays the game. And through that, he finds these openings. He just makes basic plays, almost non-spectacular plays. And then when the moment calls for it, he has the athleticism and the skill to make something spectacular, but he's not hunting for it. He's one of my favorite players, and I just think people might be a little asleep to what kind of year he's having. 23, 11, and 8. That's almost a triple-double average. An incredible year, and he's got Atlanta playing well. And I'm curious to see now if this is this a guy that ends up with 15 triple doubles this year? Because 3 in the last 5, it's like he started figured out. The team has figured it out around him. Last one for you, Legs, here. These quick hitters. James Harden moved up to 10th all time in the NBA in scoring, 28,303 points. And this feels right. He passes Carmelo Anthony. I mean, once you get up to the top 20, these are all elite scores. But it feels right to me because I think James Harden is one of the best scorers I've ever witnessed in my life. And it feels right that he is in this conversation now with Kobe and LeBron and Kareem, Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Wilt Chamberlain. All the guys that are in that list make sense. James Harden makes sense in that list to me as well.
And the only other guy in the top 10 in scoring who's also top 13 in assists is LeBron James.
Ooh.
So,
wow.
I mean, that's the dual threat component. I mean, I don't know, James Harden, the way he's playing, I mean, he's going to be, it looks like he's going to play a few more years. He's going to end up in that 10,000 assist club eventually. Top 10 all-time scorer. Now, go back to these years that he had in Houston, the numbers he was putting up, and it was the most one-dimensional offensive scheme in the history of this league. It was all high ball screen or ISO every single trip. And if it wasn't that, and James Harden was on the floor, he typically was over like hanging out by the logo. Like he wasn't going to go and like go screen or like basket cut or like go down to the baseline and come off a staggered single double like a lot of guys do. He was just going to like, okay, I'm going to take a few possessions off when he was playing with like a Chris Paul or Russell Westbrook or other guys that, would get their turn. For the most part, though, it was just the usage was just incredible. It was incredible to watch. And like, look, the combination, but I used to say at the time, by the way, Adam, people would say, and I'm not a big James Harden. Like, I'm not this guy that's always been supportive of James Harden and his style of play. I haven't been. I've given him credit when it's been due. I've criticized him, I think, when it's been due, particularly with some of the playoff performances he's had. But here's one thing I will say about the guy. The way he played in Houston and putting up those kind of numbers, he was the only player in the NBA who could have played that way and done that. And the reason is because the combination that you have to have of handle, shooting ability, and physical strength, like that combination to run high ball screen and get that level of production off running the same set all the time, you've got to have the range, the ability to get downhill with your handle and quickness, and then the strength that it takes, because it's really exhausting to play that way offensively. So give the
Right.
guy credit, man. He had all of that in like one package offensively, and it enabled him to do all these scoring throughout his career, and at the same time finding a way most nights to get double-digit assists. So a rare, unique, dual threat offensive talent who at one time was maybe the most unstoppable offensive force in the league.
And I still remember when he got traded, his first game with Houston, because I remember at the time it was kind of like, okay, well, does Houston know what they're doing? Kind of going all in on him. Let's see. I think he had 50 in that very first game of the season, first game of him in Houston, and he dropped that, and it was like, oh my God, they knew what they were doing. This guy can score. You spread the court for him, just let him go one-on-one, and now here he is in the top 10 all time as a scorer. And I think he is probably an underrated scorer, to be honest with you. The way he's able to just create shots, the way he's able to hit threes at volume, I think he's probably an underrated scorer, but just he's a polarizing player. I think of the guys that are up there, Michael Jordan, Dirk Nowitzki, LeBron, James Harden has people that hate him, quite a bit and love him quite a bit. And I think that's why maybe he's not thought of as much as one of these
I
elite
think
scorers.
for me, just real quick, just summing him up, I think for me, what ultimately holds him back in my mind from like being in a different place the way I would regard him because of these numbers. I just mentioned it. Two guys ever in the top 13 in scoring assists. It's LeBron James and him. Like, you would think a guy like that would be just universally regarded a certain way. For me, I think it was some of the moments he had in playoff series or in individual games
Yeah.
within series where you just scratched your head because he was like nowhere to be found offensively. And the teams he was on typically only knew one way to play because that's how he played. So now on those nights when he wasn't aggressive or he stopped looking to shoot or he just wasn't getting it done, those teams he was on had a very difficult time of figuring out another way to win because that's the only thing that they did offensively. And I think that's
Yeah.
ultimately what kind of holds him back in a lot of people's minds are some of those, really high profile playoff performances when he didn't play his best.
Well, I'm gonna one more point on him is that I think he is a more influential player on the game than he is probably given credit for a couple of reasons. One, that heliocentric style of play, like you just referenced, you run a screen for him and he attacks, or they switch and then everybody flattens out and he ISOs every play over and over again. That was not a way teams were playing before James Harden. There would be
Yeah.
that occasionally, but even Kobe Bryant's coming off of screens and moving around and cutting and doing different stuff. It wasn't just give him the ball, everybody get out of the way. Now you see Luka doing it, a handful of other players do it, Shea. So he invented or revolutionized a new style. And then the step back three. Even if you think about Steph Curry in the mid to early 2000s, he would take that from time to time, and it was a part of it. But James Harden, it was a huge part of the step back, side step three. Everybody in the NBA does it, and he's the one that made that shot seem, like a shot you should take as opposed to something crazy a player would do. So I think he's revolution, and then drawing fouls probably as well. The way he drew fouls, everybody does that now. So an influential guy. Let's go to the NBA Cup here real quick, Legs. Here are the four teams. This gets started this week. We'll see what the intrigue is. You've got the Heat and the Magic playing each other again. They just played each other, playing each other again now for all the marbles. Raptors, Knicks just played each other. They're playing each other again. Thunder, Suns, Lakers, Spurs. What's your intrigue level for the tournament here? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you for this?
Really high, particularly when I look at it looks like Wemby's return is imminent. He had a
Man,
full practice.
yeah.
So you add him to the mix with, Lakers, Spurs. That's a really intriguing game if Wemby makes it back for that. Um, Knicks Raptors, to me, that's a really interesting game, although Toronto's not playing as well as they were
Exciting.
earlier in the year, and the Knicks are rolling. The Magic Heat was going to be really intriguing to me, but this Wagner thing's kind of hanging over that, so we'll see. And then of course OKC, like OKC, are they looking to be that team that like finishes the year differently than other cup winners, right? Because we make up as we should. The players have bought in. It's been a really good event. I think it has brought something to the league more than I thought when they announced it. I was very skeptical of it. I'm bought in. I think it has changed. I think guys are more intense on those nights. I think they do want to win it. They've acted that way. But look at Lakers win it, Bucks win it, and then it doesn't quite go their way. So Oklahoma City is looking to do a lot this year, man. They might be looking to break the single season record for wins. Hey, if they didn't lose a 20-point lead to Portland and they're sitting here at 24-0 right now, Adam, they now would be talking about 33 in a row.
Well, yeah.
Right?
On that point, real quick though, Legs. On that point, did you see last night? They win by 30 points on the road. Did
Yeah.
not have Shea, Dort,
Yeah.
Isaiah Hartenstein, Isaiah Joe, or Alex Caruso, and they win by 30. This is why I think they're setting the record, is because they're a rare example of a team that can be missing 6 rotation pieces, and you don't even notice.
Yeah, they're not even, and I don't think it'll ever be something they consciously talk about, but I do get the impression this group of players wants to do it. No coach will ever buy into the mentality of, oh, we're going to try to do this. Coaches don't think that way. They think about moment by moment. They micromanage day by day. That's just the way coaches think, possession by possession. Players are different. That you can tell by the energy around this team that now that, and they certainly didn't think to start the year they would be 23-1. They didn't think that was going to happen. Now that they are, I think this is something now that's like it manifested itself in their own energy that they want to do this. And look, they're on pace to win 78, so they'd have to really cool off to only win 74. They got to have a bad month at some point and lose 2 games, to not break this thing, because it looks like it's pretty effortless. And to your point, they're doing it with a lot of different guys missing nights because of injuries or rest or whatever it may be. And they're so deep, it doesn't seem to matter at all. And they're so good defensively, even on nights where they don't shoot well, they can always get it done on that end and erase a deficit or suffocate a team when they need to, even if they don't shoot well. So I agree with you, man. It looks like that's where they're headed. And they want to probably do it all in 1 year, man. Let's break the single season record for wins. Let's win the cup. Let's win a title. Let's do it all. And that's kind of what the vibe around this team looks like.
I think there's something to, like, I've been thinking about this a lot, about how much should you want this or want to go for it. It's the record for wins. And I actually think it's a lot, because if you think about it, there's a lot of teams that have won 2 in a row. And if they go on to win 2 in a row, they'll be in special company because you win 2 in a row and you get mentioned there. But teams like the Heat with LeBron, Kobe's Lakers with Pau Gasol, they win 2 in a row, but they're never talked about as, are they the greatest team of all time? They're talked about as good teams. They got it done. If you win 74 or more games and go back to back, you are forever in the conversation for, was this the greatest team we ever saw? Nobody's talking about the Thunder that way right now. And I think that is on the table for them if they pull it off. And like you said, they don't even have to reach for it every night. Some nights they just win by 30 because that's how good they are. Let me ask you this one, though, back to the Cup. Who would be the biggest surprise team to win the Cup out of the 8 teams here?
Oh man. Well, if Wagner's out, this looks like he's going to be. Maybe you would say the Magic, but if Wagner was healthy and all these teams were at full strength, I think probably the most surprising team of the entire group for me would be Toronto to win the whole thing. Like going into the year, if looking at how I felt about all these teams at the start of the year, and now you're telling me the Raptors will win the cup, like the eve of the regular season opener, you go, well, what's the likelihood Toronto wins the cup? It wouldn't have looked very likely to me. So I would say probably Toronto, but there's a few in here. Phoenix would be unlikely. Miami would be unlikely in my book going into the year. Orlando wouldn't have been as unlikely going into the year, but they would be now if they don't have Wagner. The Knicks, you kind of expected it. OKC,
Right.
Spurs would be a surprise. Knicks, OKC, and Lakers. Going into the year, those would be the 3 teams that I would have said of the 8 that are left. I would have said those 3 teams would have had a chance going into the year. The other 5, all at different levels, different varying degrees of surprise.
And that's why for me, it's the Phoenix Suns because number one, they play OKC first. It would be a surprise just if anybody beats OKC, but if they beat them, it would be an upset. And then if they did win, they would go play the Lakers, and I think they would be underdogs in that one too. So the Suns to me would have 3 games where they would be the underdogs. I think they would be the most surprising. But to your point, that East, all of them besides the Knicks, kind of have a lot to prove, and it would be big for all of them. The last one is, what's the most interesting matchup of this first round to you, of the 4 games? I think you already said it, Magic Heat.
I don't know, man. If Wemby coming back, Spurs Lakers.
I agree. If he's back, I agree.
Because of how good San Antonio's been. And I saw somebody in here said I owe the Spurs an apology. I don't know what they're talking about. Does anybody remember what I said about the Spurs other than, I guess, predicting their ceiling on wins? They're probably going to surpass that.
Yeah.
So I don't think I owe you an apology, but I could say that, hey, good. I'm glad they're further along than I thought with some of these young pieces.
Yeah.
But Spurs get Wemby back, and the way they've played without him, and the emergence of some of these guys, and then taking on the Lakers with LeBron back playing now, like, to me, that's got to be the marquee game of this quarterfinal round.
I hope he is back because that would be incredible. Stephon Castle, I believe, back for this. But if Wemby is back, that game is huge. First of all, they're only separated by 1 game in the standings, which it doesn't feel that way. Lakers, obviously 17-6, the 2 seed right now, but San Antonio right behind them. God, that game would be incredible. It'd be the best game of the week if he's able to play. So I'm with you. Well, let's take our first break. On the other side, let me know in the comments, by the way, what game you're most interested in and just how invested you are. Or is it too early? And after this round, you'll start to get into the tournament. But on the other side, we're going to talk about the Lakers-Sixers game and then get back to NBA ceilings. Guys, Christmas season. If you're in the market for a last-minute gift idea for somebody you love, consider Aura Frames. Aura Frames is the solution with a gift that feels personal. It's a really cool thing where they have these frames that you would put up, like picture frames in your house, but these are digital picture frames. They can even be video frames. So whatever photo it is you want to have that you have on your phone or on your desktop, and you want to turn that into a framed photo around your house, Aura Frames is your company. And what's cool about it is you can change the photo. It doesn't have to be just one. You could change it by using your app. Just hop on your app. Maybe you have guests coming over, grandma's coming over for Christmas. You could throw up a bunch of photos of grandma on the app. It could rotate through them. Maybe it's a video that just replays and replays. And then the next day you got some friends coming over and you could change it and put some of your pictures of your friends on. It's really cool. You can even preload photos before it ships. So if you're buying this for someone you love and you want them to open it and already have the photo inside of it, you can preload it, including with a personalized message. Gift box included. Every frame comes packaged in a premium gift box with no price tag. You can wrap togetherness, but you can't frame it. So for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames. It was named #1 by Wirecutter. By using that promo code ALLNBA, all one word, ALLNBA at checkout. That's AURAFRAMES.com, promo code ALLNBA. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Also want to tell you guys about FanDuel. It's NBA season. FanDuel is your home for live betting. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at bigger payouts. However you want to play, now is the perfect time to join because FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/AllNBA to sign up today. Play your game with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 or older and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All All right, back here, segment 2 of the All NBA show. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss it. Subscribe on your phone too, whatever podcast app you get, so you can catch every single episode. We're doing this 3 times a week. Legs, before we move on to our ceilings conversation, Lakers-Sixers played last night. The Lakers got the win 112-108. It did come down to the wire. LeBron James made some big plays. What stood out to me about this one was I wondered how Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves would handle things in the clutch when one guy has it going. But I thought one of the stories, or the big story to me last night, was Luka kind of got out of the way for LeBron to close this game. That's what it felt like to me. What did you think?
Well, the only thing I'll say is I would probably frame it a little bit differently. He did on a couple of possessions where they ran a ball screen with the two of them with the intent on getting a switch to go back to LeBron, and that was clearly the intent of the possession. And that's where they kind of went to LeBron, like, okay, here, it's your possession. There were a couple of other big moments for LeBron that were created by Luka and his penetration and getting downhill and drawing a bunch of dudes to the lane and then kicking out to LeBron. It's not that often we've seen LeBron like on catch and shoot situations from the 3-point line, like late in games where he's like off the ball as a catch and shoot 3-point guy. That's, it's obviously not his wheelhouse. He's gotten better throughout his career and deeper in his career. He became a better 3-point shooter. That's kind of what this was down the stretch. LeBron playing off of Luka. And then once LeBron made a couple of shots, they then went to LeBron specifically and they got the ball to Luka's hands. And to your point, Luka's not really used to doing that throughout his career. He'll make plays for other guys, but it's because it's after he's exhausted what he has for himself. And if you defend him with multiple people, he'll make the play. Lob, kick out 3, whatever. He did that in Dallas many, many times. This was a little bit different. He's on the floor with the ball, and he had a good night too. But it's like, no, this is this other guy named LeBron James, and now we're going to go to him because he got a hot hand. Let's go to him on some specific possessions after we got a switch, and we can let him operate out of the switch. And he delivered. And it shows you kind of like how talented this team is with the 3 top guys. No team in the league has 3 guys that can manipulate a defense as a scorer and playmaker like these 3 guys. Nobody has it, including Austin Reeves, obviously, in that mix. So I think he's got a great shot to be an all-star this year. So it was an interesting and different way to close the game for a Luka-led team. But LeBron got the hot hand, and LeBron closed it. And I also want to say something. LeBron last night looked like, and maybe, he hasn't been scoring a lot since he came back. But he looks, for the most part, he looks, fine. He didn't look very happy when he was sitting on the bench and Luka was like kind of putting up big numbers. And I was wondering what that was about. And then he's come back, and I wouldn't say he's like
last night he was happy.
Over the top, but last night he was having fun. Like he looked like he was really enjoying. But man, hey, listen, when you're making shots and you're closing out games on the road, it is fun. But his chemistry with Luka last night looked really good, like in terms of the personal interaction on and off the court after baskets, that kind of stuff. Like it looked like there was more. They were meshing well last night, and they got a good road win against Philly.
To your point about having a true big 3, Austin Reeves goes 3 of 16 last night. Most teams would not survive that. If you have 2 scorers and one of them goes 3 of 16, you're not going to survive. But they have 3 guys, so one of them has a bad night. The other 2 are great, and they get the win. Any other quick thoughts on Philadelphia? My note here, 4 of 21 from Joel Embiid. He just looks really rough. But I will say that I feel like he is trying to adjust. It's almost like he realizes he doesn't have it like he used to, and he's trying hard to adjust and be impactful in other ways. But 4 of 21 is rough.
I think I don't know, man. He's painful for me to watch. And, he had even a couple, just a big jump shot last night when they went to an ISO in the middle of the floor, did not really get a quality look off, like didn't have a lot of lift. He missed a layup within the last 3 minutes of the game, like a shot that he usually just makes with his eyes closed. His lack of explosiveness and ability to, kind of overwhelm you is glaring. I think Paul George, for the most part, he didn't have a big scoring night last night, but I think there is a level of appreciation a little bit with their fan base, like watching Paul George play, because he is a smooth player and he does play like every facet of the game. And they don't need him to be 25-point Paul George. Like they've got Tyrese Maxey. They don't need that. And so Paul George is still able to do a lot of the things he normally does. And Embiid looks like a completely different player. And it's got to be so difficult for Nick Nurse managing that on the nights he is going to play. How do they kind of weigh that? Going to him late, going to him a night, hasn't had it going, but he is the MVP. He typically has a mismatch just based on size and skill. But then you've got Maxey. So it's not an easy thing for them that they're trying to navigate through. But the thing I take away from when I watch Embiid, he just doesn't have any sort of lift or explosiveness to his game at all. And I don't know what ultimately that's going to look like 2 months from now, if he's even out there.
That is the part. Yeah, your point that he looks rough right now. Is that a ramping up and his body feels better, or is that like this is where he starts and it only gets worse from here? We'll have to wait and see. I do think he's adjusting his game though, but we'll see it over time. He did take 21 shots. All right, the meat of the rest of the show here. We are going to look at some of the ceilings at the beginning of the year. And this was a fun exercise because it wasn't what do we predict will happen? It was what do we think is the best case scenario for a team, which is a little bit higher. Like we were kind of stretching ourselves a little bit higher. And yet some of the teams that we'll talk about have blown through that ceiling. James, do you have the list? If we start in the Eastern Conference, do you have the list? Here's our Eastern Conference, and we'll just kind of go one by one now, Legs. We said, oh, I love this first one, of the Boston Celtics, that their ceiling was second round exit. If you ask me how this will play out, I still think that is a likely scenario for them. But I got to be honest, Legs, we woke up this morning and they are 15-9, won 5 in a row, and that is good enough for the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference as we speak. We asked this question 2 weeks ago. We were early on it, right when they started their run, but are we underselling the Celtics, and might they have conference finals or even finals potential in them?
And I'm glad, listen, very important. You cleared this up so people understand. You're not talking about predictions. You're talking about possibilities. If everything breaks right and they play to their best and max out who they are this year as a group, I think, yeah, man, you're probably right. It probably is what we both said. But now I look at the Eastern Conference. The Cavs have a lot to figure out, and that was the other team that I thought was going to always be in their way, along with the Knicks. Cavs got a lot to figure out. Detroit is still young, even though they've had a great start to the year. So is it now conceivable that Boston, especially if they get Tatum back late in the year, which they're talking about, is it possible that Boston is a conference finalist? Yeah, I think maybe that's probably where it should be now. They're in that mix, man. So I think that would be the ceiling for me now.
Well, to me, you put too many maybes and buts in there even for me. I would do it just as they are, because here's the thing. They are number 2 right now in the NBA in offensive rating. They have the number 2 offense right now. Who's on their team? They've got Jaylen Brown, Derek White. Okay, but then after that, you're talking about Anthony Simons, Peyton Pritchard, Kada, Sam Hauser. This isn't like people wouldn't think that roster is going to be one of the best offenses of all time and certainly of this year. And yet here we are. So they clearly have figured something out about the game. And then I just trust the direction that they're going. I like the guys. We've talked about Jordan Walsh, Hugo Gonzalez a little bit. I like the guys that they get to just get contributions. So I'm raising their ceiling. I just think their ceiling now. Look at the East. Nobody out there is a juggernaut. I'm raising their ceiling a lot higher. I'll go ahead and say I think they could be finals contenders this year. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'll say that I would not be shocked if they found themselves winning the East. Brooklyn, outside of the play-in, I think that tracks. Any thoughts on that?
That's not changing, yeah. Let's just move on to the next one. That's not changing.
All right. Michael Porter's playing really well. You never know. They're kind of on an upswing, but yeah, no. Okay, the next one, the 76ers. We said Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think we're moving this one up. Are we moving it down? They're 13-10.
I'm moving it down because of the way Embiid looks. And because this entire premise was that when we both said it, the broadest range you had for any team in the NBA was Philly, floor and ceiling. Because the floor was Paul George and Embiid, don't come back at all. Like what's this going to look like? And then the ceiling is Embiid comes back, looks great. Paul George, looks good. These guys play a ton of games, and wow, how dangerous could they be? Well, to me, obviously, looking at Embiid, that's not going to happen. So for me, Eastern Conference Finals is an overshoot. The things that we thought had to happen for that to be possible aren't going to happen. So, and despite how great Maxey looks, that's not an Eastern Conference finalist.
I think that's right. Again, when we talk about ceilings, it's always possible that they can make a run or something. So it feels weird. But I would say that yes, almost certainly I have them as a first round team, and that's their ceiling this year. Let us know if you agree or disagree. If we go to the New York Knicks, you said they could make the finals but lose. I gave them a little more grace and said they could win the NBA Finals. Are you moving anywhere with the Knicks? They're 16-7, 2 seed in the East.
Come on, go ahead. You can dial it back and join me. I know you want to.
I
Okay,
think you're probably right.
you got a 23-1 team sitting out there. So, yeah, to me, I think I think I nailed this one. I think their ceiling is get to the NBA Finals, and I think that's still obviously they're still very much in the mix. They're 2.5 games behind Detroit. They're in second place in the East, playing really well right now. So, yeah, I think that is the best case for the Knicks. Win the Eastern Conference, ultimately lose to who comes out of the West, most likely OKC.
I think that is probably right, but I'm not going to change my answer just yet. They could.
You don't have to. No, you shouldn't yet. You shouldn't yet. Definitely.
Staying on my quarter here. I could see them winning. I'm not picking it, though, but I could see it. I will say the Knicks, they've had just a slow enough start that I feel like they're now under the radar, comfortably 2 games ahead of the Celtics as the 2 seed. And we'll see what happens over these upcoming weeks. Let's move on to the Chicago Bulls. I'm sorry, the Toronto Raptors, who look at this might be our biggest whiff. 11 seed, you said, Legs. Their ceiling was 11 seed. I said they could make the playoffs through the play-in. Both of us were too low on them, 15-10, although, as you pointed out earlier, they are kind of sliding. So now, do we overcorrect and bump them up a lot, or are they going to slide back to where we thought?
I don't think they'll fall as far as I said, but I still don't think it's some given that they end up in the top 6 either. So you're probably closer, but maybe they are. Maybe they do finish higher than that. I definitely was too low. You are possibly too low, but not as low probably as I had them. They're going to be better than an 11 seed. But I mean, look, man, they're right now, Philadelphia's a game behind them, and Philadelphia's in the 7th spot right now. So, I don't know that they finished in the top 6. They've lost 5 out of 6. RJ Barrett's hurt right now. You're counting on Brandon Ingram, who's only played 60 games 4 times in his career, only over 65 once in his career. That was his rookie year. So he's playing really well for them. He's been healthy for the most part. Are you going to count on that and rely on that? So yeah, I missed that. They're better than that. You're probably closer to being right, but maybe you even had a little bit below what they could end up.
15-10. I do love their roster still. They have hit a little bit of adversity. I'm surprised by some of the losses they've accumulated, but the real question is, let's look below them. Who is for sure going to pass them? The Magic just lost Franz Wagner, we think. The Miami Heat, okay, I could see them passing them. That's one team. The 76ers, we just talked about, we're not really buying them. The Cavs, we're going to get to in a second. I am buying them, but I think they're going to have just a tumultuous regular season, not a lock to pass them. And then the Atlanta Hawks, who I do think have a shot at passing them. So there's 3 teams that I could see passing them. They're the 4 seed right now. That would put them at the 7 seed if all of them pass. I still like this as a playoff team via the play-in, but they might be slightly ahead of that. So I think we're kind of right on them. The Chicago Bulls are interesting because they started so hot, and now here they are outside of even the play-in at 9-14. You said first round exit. I said make playoffs via the play-in. We might both have overshot this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think they're still very much in the mix to make the play-in. They're a game behind Milwaukee right now for that spot. Milwaukee, who knows what's going to happen with Giannis and everything else. Cleveland, we're going to get to. Cleveland, Philly, and Atlanta are the other 3 teams in the play-in. I think we all like those teams more than Chicago, but they could potentially get into the play-in. And then you're talking about just play well in a night or two, and now you're in the first round. So I don't know that it's quite ready to give up on what I said. You and I are very close in kind of what we said. So I don't know that I'm ready to give up on that yet, even though they've lost 7 in a row.
Yeah, 7 in a row is a lot. I think I'm going to update it to what we should have always gone with from the very start. They're going to make the play-in, but not the playoffs, because that's what they do every single year for, I don't know, the last 2 or 3 years. That's probably where this finishes. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I said win the NBA Finals. You said lose the NBA Finals. Here's my thing, Legs. I actually think this team is just missing key pieces and is better than what they have shown so far. But with how tumultuous their season has gone, the upside for them in a playoff scenario seems unlikely. How are you going to adjust? Are you going to adjust their upside?
Look, I'm not going to sit here and bury them and say that they're guaranteed to be a play-in team or lose in the first round. But now I'm looking at this and I'm having a hard time imagining them because I don't look. They have been banged up. There's no denying that. And I was
Yeah.
looking at this earlier today. You look at the number of games that these guys have missed for the Cavs. Let's see where I went because it was I can't find it, but it was actually glaring to me how many games. Oh, here you go. So Jared Allen's played 10 games. Strus hasn't
Yeah.
played at all. Merrill's only played 13. Garland has missed 16 games. So it is a big factor, but there's something else about him. It's like the toughness factor. So now I'm picturing them beating the Knicks or the Pistons. It's hard for me to imagine that. And maybe even Boston by the time we get to that part of the year. So is it can they run through the East and lose in the finals? I probably would dial that back now. At best, saying maybe conference finals, but most likely second round exit again.
Man, I'm gonna leave this because I think the Eastern Conference is open. I will say winning the NBA Finals feels like a bit of a stretch here, but I think I'm gonna bury my flag on the Cavs are gonna have a rough year until about January or February, and then they're gonna go on a run. And because of that, I'm going to kind of stick here and think that they still are good. Strus is a big part of their roster. But the things you brought up are important because these were questions last year, even when they were healthy, of just, are they tough enough? Are they together enough? All those different things. We might not get an answer to that all year until the playoffs, and that's always tough. Let's go to the Pacers. We were way off on this one. We both just had too much respect for Pacers culture. Rick Carlisle, you said second round. I basically said second round. They're not sniffing the playoffs legs.
No, and this is the greatest thing that Tyrese Halliburton could put together for making an MVP case next year because I didn't see this coming. And look, I called one of their games very early in the year, and they played a double overtime game against Oklahoma City. That was one of the most entertaining games I've called. And I was thinking, like, man, look at this. Look at these guys, man. Like, they're not going to go away. Like, they're just the way they play is tough to guard. They've got tough guys. Carlisle can coach. They're not going to just mail this season in. They're just not going to do that. It just they just have a very difficult time winning games, and obviously they're missing their identity offensively and how they want to play. So yeah, I mean they're sitting there at 5-18 right now. They are 4 games out of even the play-in. So it looks like it's going to be very difficult for them to even get into the play-in. So yeah, obviously we both overshot on this one.
Pistons, you said Eastern Conference Finals. I said second round. You are definitely closer, but I would raise mine all the way up to final. I don't think they can win the finals, but I think they can win the East.
I agree. I think that clearly you're looking at a team that, no doubt you go, oh, okay, that could potentially get to the conference finals. They might have the 1 seed, play a couple rounds at home. They could be in the conference finals. Doesn't mean they will or won't beat a team like the Knicks or the Celtics or whoever is left there to play. But there's no doubt that it's possible now. So I said Eastern Conference Finals. I think I would raise that as well to finals.
The next one is the Bucks. This was the hardest one to say anything about. We said second round. Right now, as it sits, they are the 10 seed. But I still have a hard time counting out if Giannis is healthy. Could they come out of the play-in? I think so. Could they upset somebody, even a 1 seed? I think so. But I think all of those things are a lot of maybes and buts. They're probably now just a first-round team at best.
Yeah, I agree. Probably. But again, the Giannis factor, and depending on what they do, if they hold on to him, and you're saying, okay, they're in a play-in, they come out of the play-in, and there's not like there's these locks, stone cold locks at the top of the conference. So you still got to play a team with Giannis on it in a first round series. So I don't know that I'm ready to quite bail completely on what we both said, but more likely it would be the ceiling a first round exit.
And then I love this next one. The Atlanta Hawks, because you said second round. I said Eastern Conference Finals. As it sits, they're the 9 seed, 14 and 11. Which, by the way, the East right now, they are 1 game behind the 4-seeded Toronto Raptors. So 4 to 9 right now, very, very close, hasn't separated. I love this Hawks team. We haven't seen them with Trae Young very much. They look different. They really got going once he was gone. But like it was the case with Paolo Banchero, there's a world where the new Jalen Johnson version of the team blends with the old Trae Young team in a way that's positive. This is a tough team for me to project because I love the Hawks and I think they're sneaky good. And I want to stick with my Eastern Conference Finals pick. What do you think, Legs?
Man, that's a tough one for me. I think I had it nailed. Second round being their ceiling, but they are an intriguing team because of what Jalen Johnson has turned into. And you think about all the pieces being out there together at the same time with this new young star type talent. It's really interesting with the East being gettable. That's what it looks like to me. Like these teams look like they could be had in a series
Yeah.
potentially, these higher seeds. So I don't know. One of us potentially could be right. They're only one win. You said, they're only a game out of the four. They're only one win behind the 3 seed. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're there, man. A lot's going to transpire over the next month. It's going to, give us, I think, a lot more clarity on this. But I don't think either one of us is like crazy.
We did the other day, most interesting teams of December. Atlanta's up there. I'm going to add them to my most interesting teams of this month because I don't know who they are quite yet. The Hornets, we said make playoffs or play in. You said outside the play in. I think you're going to pick up the win on this one, Leg 7-17, and they just look like a team that's rebuilding. They don't look like a team that is like
they just don't really understand winning basketball. So
they're not a
they're
serious team.
entertaining. They're entertaining, man. They got some guys I like watching to play just for get some popcorn out. Like that's fun, but it's not going to translate into winning this year. So I think outside the play was right.
Yeah, I think you nailed that one. Miami Heat, I said make playoffs via the play-in. You said first round exit. I think that still is kind of where they're hovering, 14-10, 6 seed, but razor thin. I think this is about right. I will say I think their upside is a second round, just because of who might finish as the 3 seed and play them. I could see them beating some of these banged up teams if they make it there, but I still think they probably make it to the playoffs for one round.
I think I nailed it. But I mean, if anything, I just maybe move that up a half a notch. Yeah, maybe they throw a hell of a scare into somebody as a 6
Yeah.
seed or something, or a 7 seed playing the 2 because of how well coached they are, how much respect they have, and they have a lot of firepower. They can really score. It's going to be harder for them to play that way, I think, in the postseason. But Spoelstra, man, playing against that guy in a 7-game series, you got to be ready for anything that he could throw at you. So maybe it's a little bit higher than I said, but ultimately I think it's probably going to end up where I said.
A couple more here. We've got the Orlando Magic, who we've talked about. We both said Eastern Conference Finals. As of the time of recording this, we are waiting for the Franz Wagner news to pop up. If he is healthy or is only going to miss a little bit of time, I still think Eastern Conference Finals is on the table for an upside. It wouldn't be my pick, but as an upside play, it is. But if he's out for the year, forget it. I just don't see it.
I agree. That's it. So that's why there's no reason to move it at all right now until we hear more.
I'll tell you one team we nailed, Legs. We nailed this team. We called it. The Washington Wizards. We said they're going to be in the lottery. Well, here they are at 3-19. They're getting outscored by an average of 15.9 points. I don't know what's more impressive, man. Oklahoma City is outscoring opponents by an average of 16 points. The Wizards are getting outscored by 16 points. They're just the inverse of each other, but we nailed this one, Legs. Pat on the back.
I tell you, and I think my sympathy award for the league goes to CJ McCollum, the guy that I really, really admire. I've liked him for a long time. He's a good dude. He's a pro. And he's out there putting up 19 a night and losing by 16 on average a night. That's rough.
Yeah. We're going to have to save the Western Conference for Wednesday, which is great because that'll give us another conference here. And I know you have a hard stop today and had to get out of here. We did have a couple super chats, though. James, what do we got? What are the people saying? La Quinta Orange County says, you have become the very thing you swore to destroy, Adam, for his immaculate energy he brought to the Nuggets podcast last night. Immaculate energy. I don't know if I had great energy last night. I will say this. This happens sometimes, Leg, when you cover 82-game season. Last night, Jamal Murray had 23 points in the first quarter, which is the most he's ever scored. But the game was a bit of a slog. Sometimes I will say in a course of an 82-game season, you have to find the little things to appreciate. And Jamal Murray's opening quarter was the only storyline, really, of the Nuggets game last night. Sometimes you got to just appreciate it for what it is.
Can I give you a couple real quick before we go? Just a couple of Nuggets notes that I've been kind of
please
down here, kind of interesting to me. I did on another media thing I went on with already. They want to talk about all-star selections and things like that. I think there's like so many locks in the West. I think it's going to come down to Jamal Murray Devin Booker, Austin Reeves, two of those three guys are going to make the All-Star team.
Man. Well, they're doing the weird thing this year where it's like 16 U.S. born players. So it gets confusing.
It does, but actually, when you write down actually, this Wagner thing could change a little bit. But when you look at the world guys that are going to get in, I had Wagner as a lock, Giannis, Luka, Shea, Jokic, Wemby, Şengün, and I think Avdi is going to get in. I think he's got a great chance to get in as a foreign player.
Is he over Jamal?
So, yeah.
Tough one. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the deal.
So I think if it comes down to it, and then you got the 8 world players, then you're going to have that last American player. And I think, Jamal would be a foreign player, actually. Avdi over Jamal, right, for the world team. So I think he's having that kind of a year, man, if you're not paying attention. One other thing, real quick, a nugget note. I was just thinking to myself, called a pretty historic game, Jokic's 30-20-20 game a year ago, which was pretty incredible with Dave Pasch. We still couldn't believe we were watching a 30-20-20 game. Never thought I'd see it. So I was thinking to myself, man, like with the year Shea is having, and Jokic has been incredible too, but like Jokic might need to have like one of those moments, like, you know what I mean? So I was thinking, like, what if he did a 40-30 game? And I was like, how many times have guys had 40-30 games? Do you know
Never?
The answer to that question?
I would guess never.
So
Wilt, maybe.
The last guy to have 40 points and 30 rebounds in a game was Elvin Hayes back in the 70s.
Okay.
And do you know how many times Wilt Chamberlain did
it? No.
70. So I'm thinking, like, can Jokic get one of those to like have that splashy game, right? Because I think if Shea won it last year, I got news for you, man. He's going to win it this year if he stays healthy. So what would Jokic have to do? He's already been incredible, but like, with that marquee game that like stands at 40-30. I said, that's really not been done hardly ever, except Wilt did it 70 plus times.
This all comes down to just little weird quirks, right? Like statistical quirks.
Yeah.
My prediction coming into the year is Jokic would have a stretch of 3 games without missing a shot. He already has 1 game where he didn't miss a single shot, but I said there would be a moment where he just catches fire and doesn't, 9 for 9, 10 for 10, 7 for 7, something like that.
So you do that, you're going to be closing in on Gafford's record. Remember Gafford set that record like 2 years ago, I think it was. He had like 35 straight makes or something for the field. But Jokic a little different. It's a little different when you're a lob threat only or an offensive putback as opposed to a guy running the offense and doing that. It's a little different.
All right, what else we got here, James? Johnny says, hey, Adam and Legs, which team for each of these players you think would be a good hypothetical trade destination? AD, Ja, LaMelo, Kuminga, and Giannis? Hey, Adam and Legs, which team?
Well, here's one thing I will say for sure that I'm finally definitive on, because you never know about Ja and LaMelo and Giannis, right? You know, Jonathan Kuminga's getting traded.
DNP last night.
The dude got a DNP after Steve Kerr earlier in the year, 4 games in, said he's become my entrenched starter now because of the way he played, and he just got a DNP. And so, and they were shorthanded. They didn't even have guys.
I know.
Curry didn't play. Draymond didn't play, and he still got a DNP. Pat Spencer is now entrenched.
He's ahead of them.
He's sitting on the bench. So if we're finally at the breaking point, and we kind of knew it when they signed him. Of
course.
Now it's I think it's officially over. Jonathan Kuminga will be moving on, and I don't know that Jonathan Kuminga is necessarily going to be a winning player somewhere, but he's going to go somewhere probably to a mediocre to below average team and put up numbers.
Yeah. By the way, Steve Kerr was asked about it after the game, and he just said, it's a matchup. If you're not a star, our rotation is about matchups. Tough scene. What else we got here? Mark Cooper, he says, what do you think about a men's block of AD? I didn't see this last night. Did you see this, the highlight?
I missed this one too. No, I didn't see this.
We weren't watching. We'll have to catch up on it.
Let me ask you a question. Was it as good as Maxi's block to save that game?
Man, that block, the block was great, but the speed of which he caught up, man, was just incredible. That's what made that play so spectacular.
And you could see how much it meant to him as a guy that's getting 30 and 40 every night now. The guys like that love making that game-winning play on the other end of the floor because he's not known for his defense. That was first of all, the awareness. It's like to take off running from basically the corner in front of his own bench and to run that down on the other end of the floor it's one of the great hustle plays that you're going to see, man. It's saved again, because that's a surefire layup.
Richard says, Legs, Quentin Post has taken a significant leap on defense this year. The numbers are crazy. What have you seen on film?
Well, I know this. Steve Kerr raves about him every chance he gets, man. And you could tell, man, these coaches sometimes will even Steve Kerr will get even asked a question about something else, and he'll circle it back to Quentin Post. That's how much he loves the guy. So you're right, he has. And I give the guy a lot of credit. He kind of came out of nowhere last year. Mainly was a pick and pop shooter, and he's added more to his game, and it's made him a more viable rotational player to stay on the floor even when he's not making shots. So give him a lot of credit. That's not an easy thing to break through if people think that you're kind of labeled a certain way.
What do we got? Another one here. JK says, Legs, in keeping with your Halliburton comment, does OKC consistently winning without SGA make a case for him not being the MVP? Thanks. Cool shirt color.
Man, no. Here's the thing. I hear what you're saying. I'm looking at it like this. I just logically, you'd have to explain to me if the guy got the MVP last year on a year in which Jokic had this historically great year and SGA was still able to win it. Primarily, look, he put up great numbers. He's a great player. Don't get me wrong. Very deserving. But the gap in wins was the final deciding factor. They lapped everybody in the West by such a wide margin. They're going to do it again. And his numbers are either as good or better in almost every category.
Yeah.
So,
and he is better. He's shooting the three better. He is a better player this year than he was last year. It's not
he's
just
better, and he's doing it so efficiently. And if you on top of that, this team's going to win 70 plus games. I just don't see any way they don't win 70. They can withstand injuries to everybody, probably except him. And even him, they would still win at a high rate. They just wouldn't win at a high enough rate to maintain a 70 win pace. Anybody else, they can miss for extended periods of time, and they're fine. So it's to me, man. I don't declare these things this early in the year ever, and I'm not doing it now. A lot of basketball to be played, but it's like his numbers. Clearly, he's going to finish with the same exact numbers or better, and that team is going to have a record-setting year. Yeah. He's going to win.
All right, last one we have here. Champy says Arizona equals most underrated state in terms of talent. Go Suns, go Arizona Wildcats. Not so much a question, just a statement.
Well, I noticed they didn't mention the Arizona Cardinals in there. So what's up with that?
Cardinals having a rough go this year. Definitely a rough go. They did not mention it. Hit that outro music for us, James. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us. We're going to have to do the Western Conference, update our predictions, our ceiling predictions on Wednesday, Legs. But this was good stuff. Everybody, make sure you're locked to the channel by being subscribed so you don't miss any of the content. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. We have really cool graphics, courtesy of our guy AOP, who does really good stuff every single day. You can go to that channel and get highlights and everything else from the day before. It's fantastic. But we're back Wednesday. Hit that like button on the way out, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.